Welcome to Afterthoughts, everybody. It is our recommend or refute episode. We're going to go around the table and each recommend or refute something different that we each watched this past week. With me is the usual crew. John Garcia, how you doing?
Hey, I am doing well. Mental sanity check-in. I'm still sane, and it is the early days of Schlocktober. So
I
we'll
don't believe you.
Well, yeah, we'll see where this goes.
Got to give it to the end of the 31 days, man.
Ryan King, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm also doing good. Yeah, definitely watching people get eviscerated this season. So far, okay. My mental toll is also
season
okay.
Off strong.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, John, you want to kick us off? What did you watch this week?
I watched Schlock this week, Dixon.
I am shocked.
Yes.
Yeah.
John.
No, that's the name of the movie, though. I watched Schlock, the
Oh,
movie.
okay.
That's the 1973.
I am kind of surprised that had you watched this like 58 times before? Or
No, I've never seen Schlock before.
I cannot believe that.
All of the things I'm going to say are both lies and truth at the same time.
Simultaneously.
I speak in riddles now.
Schlock I watched.
I don't speak in Yodas. I watched Schlock. It's the first film directed by John Landis.
From the dawn of man comes Schlock. A beast from 20 million years ago stalks the streets of today. A love stranger than King Kong. A monster more powerful than Godzilla. See, a small California town learn the true meaning of terror. Bananas! And now, Schlock. There is no place to hide. No one is safe from Schlock. 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 Schlock.
John Landis, who's done so many other things that he should be proud of, not Max Landis, obviously, but the other things too are great.
So you should be ashamed of his child?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Schlock is, God, where to even start with this movie? So this is my first movie of Schlocktober. For those of you out there who are new to the concept of Schlocktober and what the fuck that even means, every October, as of, I think 2 years ago, something like that, I have just started subjecting myself. Yeah, year 3. I've started subjecting myself to any kind of film, depending upon the poster, the synopsis, the year. For 31 days in October, I don't do horror. I do things that you should be afraid of. And
things that keep you awake at night.
These films, why did they make this? That kind of thing. I kick the remote away. I can't stop the movie, and it just has to play out, and I have to accept it. This is I don't know where this idea came from, but I latched onto it and I'm riding it hard.
To be clear, this is not John just finding random movies to watch. This is John seeking out the most poorly made movie.
I just found out. So I have a pro Just Watch Just Watch subscription. Flex.
Wait, what do you get from a pro Just Watch subscription? I don't pay for it. I just
you
search
can
for things.
Sort by the year that it came out.
Okay.
That's like it. Thanks, Just Watch. Really bringing it home.
You get
for
no
all
ads
of us.
or something?
Yeah. Nope. You still get ads. you get all that Just Watch goodness, but you can sort by, I think, rating.
Other things aside from just watching.
Oh, you can sort by runtime. That's the other pro benefit you get. Thanks, Just Watch. This podcast.
Wait,
not
but what are you
sponsored by
sorting?
Just
Like
Watch.
you just search for the movie to see where it's streaming. Like I
Well,
don't understand the concept.
I started sorting by, one, when you sort in Tubi, which is where I go for my trash for
That's where the
Schlocktober.
trash is left.
Tubi has recently changed their algorithm to no longer return every movie shot or released in a certain year. Now they just return any fucking thing. Doesn't matter. Because they have an AI that will tell you what you want to watch. And so I have to fall back to Just Watch and use their heavy query system, which, by the way, does not let you start from the bottom up in ratings. I'm very disappointed in you, Just Watch, assuming I would want to watch classic films from any era. And so
you don't know John.
yeah, apparently I'm the user you didn't account for. So I have to sort by runtime above 70 minutes. Hey, that's how we get there. We need to get that checkered flag in to say you're a feature.
I bet you're cutting off some real bad shit with that 70-minute requirement.
I would beg to differ that there's still some real good shit somewhere in here. Anyways, I sorted everything this year with Just Watch using those fancy filters in my pro account, Flex. And I came up with a secret list that nobody will know unless you follow my letterbox and find out what the fuck I've been subjecting myself to. And Schlock,
I don't recommend it. It's terrifying.
The first thing. There will also be a website posted, and I'll put details later on that, where you can watch some of these movies, maybe a little condensed, maybe like 5 minutes of your day. How does that sound? Might not be too bad.
I will say that John's little 5-minute edits of the Schlock movies are very entertaining and funny and very worth watching. Do not, under any circumstances, watch the entire length of any of the movies that John watches during Schlocktober.
Absolutely.
But the 5-minute edit is pretty fucking funny.
The Surgeon General
kind of
recommends.
A drinking game.
Yeah,
you just see how far you can get through what John gets through.
Yeah, I dare you. But I also don't advise you. That's more important for legal disclaimers. Anyways, so Schlock was my first stop off. I have done Schlocktober for 3 years now, and I have not watched this movie. And I knew it was out there because Schlock that's like where the definition of Schlock comes from, is John Landis's first film.
I didn't know that.
And after that movie came out, a lot of things could be described as, this is Schlock. Why the fuck would I want to watch Schlock? It knows exactly what it is. It is a parody of like those B movies from the 50s and 60s that I'm sure we're all very aware of. There's a giant octopus, there's giant ants, there's fucking nuclear fallout, whatever.
Every sci-fi movie before 2001.
Exactly. There's fucking bad actors everywhere. Not in like a malicious way, just like they fucking are bad actors. And there's bad science at play. There's a lot of drooling fucking monologues, and you get a monster in a rubber suit. So Schlock is some independent filmmaker decided, John Landis, that he would get up and make a movie that made fun of those. At the same time, he was going to try to make a good movie while he was skewering that. So Schlock is this like mix of absurdism, parody, and satire that goes into an hour and a half of a B movie. And it's all about a man in a monkey suit. In the movie's context, that is actually just a straight up monkey man. It's like some kind of in between Neanderthals and something else, or one of the 2001 kind of apes.
That's kind of what it looks like from the IMDb screenshots.
The movie even starts with like a trailer-esque voice that's like, you remember like these iconic movies, and you remember
this summer.
Yeah, and it's like 2001 A Space Odyssey, and now you'll forever remember Schlock. And then they just go. There's like a detective who's trying to solve the case of the banana murders, which anytime that there are people in a densely populated area with bananas, they all end up murdered by something. Nobody knows what it is. And this like balding detective standing over all the corpses is like, we need to put out an APB on whatever the fuck could have caused this. And then from there, the movie just goes off the rails. Like it's like 10 minutes in, and this monkey is just wandering into random scenes and either causing violence, like by throwing people in a way, or causing confusion. And so like they have a news anchor that shows up on the scene to report, and he's talking about how they don't know what's going on, but there's something out there that's killing people. And he starts interviewing somebody. Turns out that somebody is Schlock, the fucking monkey man, and he doesn't recognize it for like a solid 10 minutes.
The news guy's interviewing the
he's like, sir, what did you think about this? And the fucking monkey can't make any sense of it.
Wait, does he speak English?
No, John Landis plays the monkey man, and he does a phenomenal job. There's a whole diatribe, like a sidebar in the movie, where Schlock somehow wanders into a movie theater and starts watching classic films and having emotional reactions to them. And it's like the most bizarre, weird shit. And there's like a love story that forms. And then there's like, it follows all the narrative beats of a B movie, where like, even at the end, somebody is like, looks like it was Beauty that killed the beast. And like the most inappropriate time. And the sheriff or the fucking detective is like, the fuck is wrong with you? Like, it's just the flat line delivery of like, we really need to fucking get your head checked. You're just saying weird shit at random times. And so
don't fucking soliloquize. This is real life. You can't just do that.
It definitely has that feeling of like, hey, this is like a scrappy production. There's a lot of indie kind of filmmaker, like, moxie at work, making these fucking goofy gags, one-off jokes, other things that they clearly thought would be funny in the moment. And I had a great time. I laughed a shit ton. Sasha watched it with me. And Sasha also is like, the next few days, it wasn't one of those things where like Ryan talks about how Darla talked about the movie the next day. Sasha kind of vaguely was like, how's your Schlocktober going? Have the other movies been, anywhere near what Schlock was? And I'm like, oh no, they've all been awful. And she's like, yeah, Schlock was actually like, it was like good. Like I could watch it again, I guess. Like it'd be fine. She very like, she wasn't trying to like ask questions about it, but she was like, yeah, no, that from what I remember, that was a good movie. I would enjoy that again. It was weird. So has semi endorsement from her. Okay. But yeah, like if you want to see where the fucking term got its origin, watching Schlock is not a bad way to find out. It was fun. I may or may not have been on some mind altering substances when I watched it, and that may have made it better. But I have a strong feeling I'll watch it again when I'm perfectly sober and crystal clear mind, and I'll still have a good time with it. It's just lighthearted fun. So yeah,
this was like kicked off Landis's career because he's like pretty solid hits after this.
Did he act after this, or is this just like a thing that he did to just get this movie made?
I don't know. He's been an actor in 114 films.
Oh, so yes.
So he has definitely
but it's usually like cameo sort of, or like a small part, right, where he's kind of like a cameo kind of thing. I think of a lot of those. I don't know how many he was like a
Yeah, and this is like right. He then would go on to do Animal House and American Werewolf in London, and unfortunately, he would also have the co-directing rights with Joe Dante and Steven Spielberg for the Twilight Zone movie. And I think it's under John Landis's direction that he did. There was a death on the set of Twilight Zone, the movie,
helicopter or whatever that crashed.
Sad.
Yeah,
but I'm glad he's back in filmmaking. I mean,
was it his fault?
I think it might have been like
it was a combination of efforts. It was a system of failures.
Yeah, it's just one of those.
Yeah, there was like
an Alec Baldwin situation, or like what?
Yeah, kind of. They were like working way too long. They had the kids there like when they weren't supposed to. Jesus. Yeah, it was nighttime shot. I think the pilot was like tired. Like there were so many things that were like a bad idea.
Yeah. And so that kind of like put a lull in there, and then he came back and continued on with his career. But yeah, Schlock is like such a strong start. There's like so far he can go from here. Just watching it, it was like, it's one of those things where when I watched it, at times I thought this shouldn't make me laugh, but it's making me laugh. Not like it's inappropriate, but like, oh fucking come on, this joke, but it works. Like it just, in the context of the movie, it's just so strong. So I enjoyed it. Had a good time. Good start to Schlocktober. The other two movies I've watched since, I can't recommend at all. So, and I'll never tell you what those are. So you out there, watch out. There's landmines.
How did the monkey murderer get its name Schlock? Like, how did that word is now in the zeitgeist and it means these shitty movies? Like, what is the context for its name in the film?
I think that the context, so the film's context is that some scientist just decides to randomly name it Schlock, and it makes it like a write-off kind of thing. And I think that's John Landis's kind of thing too, is because you think about a B movie where they're telling you what to be afraid of, and they're like, the terrifying, the like mystifying, the gigantic 300-foot octopus. But here it's like the mystify, like, oh, it's going to murder you, the Schlock. And you're like, the fuck did you say to me? And so
just invent a weird word.
Yeah. And so I think John Landis was just like, yeah, just fucking Schlock, just run with it. And so every character delivering it stone-faced in the movie is great. It's really funny. But it's also really funny to see a creature that's supposed to be like the banana murderer, known as Schlock, gently scooting his way through an audience in a theater. And he's not saying, I'm sorry, excuse me, but he's just like, and everybody's like, oh, fuck my popcorn. Like, oh God, like nobody gives a shit about the ape man named Schlock sitting next to them watching.
Oh yeah, you're just mad that
those
someone is
classic-
in
yeah.
your way while you're trying to watch
Exactly.
the movie. I get it.
So
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah, it's great. It's funny to watch him take the wind out of the sails of like any of those old horror movies. So it's fun. It's a good parody.
All right, interesting. Ryan, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so during October, I like to watch horror movies and horror franchises. I used to watch the same horror movies over and over again, but this last few years I've been going and trying to like watch the staple horror movies, and deep into their horrible franchises.
Yeah. What did you do first? It was,
Yeah, so last year I did like I talked about Halloween, Friday the
Yeah.
13th,
Mhm.
Child's Play. We
Rankin
talked about
Bass.
Hellraiser, and I watched all the Rankin Bass movies. So this time I watched the best horror movie of 2023, the box office bomb Elemental. No,
Oh
I do wanna
God.
the
no,
horror.
I
is
do
for
want to
the
make a quick
executives.
shout out before I talk about the actual horror movie I watched. I did watch Elemental. And it honestly was like not that bad.
Oh, that's
I-
the best thing I've heard about it.
Yeah, really. I do think that the trailers just did it a real disservice because the trailers made it look like kind of a lot of already Disney and Pixar movies that have been out, kind of like the same thing. But honestly, weirdly, it is an immigrant story. It's like unclear from the trailer at all. I don't know why they
Yeah.
can do that. Where like the fire elements are moving into the city where these other elements already are, and they're kind of ostracized, don't fit in because fire's like, a little too dangerous to the other elements. And it very much is like, it's American Tail is the other animated
Oh.
movie I can think of. That's
They're
like
like
an
the
immigrant story.
Italians or something. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Right. It kind of is that. Yes. Like Italian, Jewish, whatever it is, Irish
Mhm.
kind of coming in and then establishing their culture in their area and the kind of like fight between that. It's not at all what that trailer made it look like. I was very surprised by that. Now,
Yeah.
it doesn't come to be like amazingly stand out, but I did appreciate like it doesn't have a big villain or any of the other tropes that you would expect to have. It's like oddly grounded for what the hell it is. But I do want to talk about the horror movie I watched was The Conjuring.
Right, it's 9:18. We're headed down into the cellar where the doors just opened on its own. Give us a sign that you want to communicate with us.
What are you guys?
Well, we've been called ghost hunters, paranormal researchers.
But we prefer to be known simply as Ed and Lorraine Warren.
It's November 1st, 1971. I'm sitting here with Carolyn Perrin, who, with her family, has been experiencing supernatural occurrences. You picking up anything in here, hon?
Something awful happened here, Ed.
What is it?
There's a lady in a dirty nightgown that I see in my dreams. She's standing in front of my mom's bed.
Because that's also at like 8 movies now with The Nun 2
yeah,
coming
so
out
many
this year.
fucking movies now. I've not
Yeah,
seen
and
any of them, and I don't plan on it.
Yeah, I had also not seen any of them or been particularly interested, and I always throw them shade, so I figured I owed it to at least watch it this season. And yeah, it sucked. It was justified what I said
if
about
Patrick
it before.
Wilson is headlining your movie, you've made a wrong turn
Hey,
somewhere.
I love Patrick Wilson.
I'm gonna go ahead and disagree with you on that one.
I think that he is a great Chevy Chase stand. As a stunt double, he would work really well.
Chevy Chase has some talent, like there are things that he can do well. Patrick Wilson is just that forgettable white guy that you're just like, oh yeah, that guy, he's there.
Yeah.
He
does a good job of that.
Watchmen for some reason. Yeah.
Yeah, he does a good job of that here. He's
Because
pretty
they
much
thought
just
who
the
would
guy.
be a sadder Batman?
Sad man.
Anyways, right.
Yeah, so anyway, Conjuring 2013. This is honestly, it is the Amityville horror over again, even though it tries to act like it's not that story. This one actually just like officially embrace like the Warrens and all their bullshit, and the family that moved into the house that's the Amityville house or what it is or isn't or whatever.
These are, to
anything
be
the
clear,
Warrens
the
have to
Warrens
say.
are like the people who kind of perpetuated the haunting myth at Amityville,
No,
right?
the
Like,
Amityville family perpetuated it. The dad of the Amityville horror perpetuated that story for his own gains. The Warrens are demonologists, I'm putting it in quotation marks there.
Yes.
Who like perpetuate their own acclaim through these different supernatural investigations they've done.
I took a class. I took
an
elective class in demonology in college. Yeah.
Damn it! I took one in vampirology. Compare notes.
The Warrens, as they were trying to get their bullshit career off, did go do some of the like ghost hunter stuff. You know, at the time, this is a long time ago, before the TV shows, at the Amityville Horror House or whatever, and claimed things or whatever, and used kind of like rode the coattails a little bit at the same time. They're the ones that have the Annabelle doll and all that, you know, some other crap along those lines. The movie starts with like a wall of text bullshit, a bit like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They try to tell you like this stuff is real and it's horrible, and the Warrens are these amazing demonologists, and that Ed Warren is the only person that's not a priest who's recognized by the Catholic Church to do exorcisms.
Sure.
They wouldn't even recognize Max von Sydow? Come on.
Yeah. They started off with the Warrens hearing about and getting the Annabelle doll, which they just keep and like put on a fucking shelf, and are like okay with just having in their house, even though they believe this shit is real. And then we kind of get like the intro to the family moving in the house and all that, and it's fucking exactly the Amityville Horror, right? They move in, weird shit happens. They call out the Warrens, weird shit happens. They don't move away, even though horrible things keep happening. They never think it's a good idea to move.
Of course not.
Honestly, this movie just does exactly what I thought it was going to do. It's like it just uses music stings, fake jump scares, some, you know, weird looking stuff, people like in the background walking by into darkness. You know, they're like, oh God, what was that? Did I see it? Kind of crap. And that's it. It doesn't have any semblance of like a point. I feel like that there has to be some myth that it's built around, or concept or something. There has to be some establishment of like actual rules that maybe those rules get broken or something. But it's like this movie right off the bat jumps in and is like, yeah, there's demons. Here's a demon. Here's an example. And then tells you like there's a demon in this house, and just immediately tells you all that and constantly shows it to you throughout it. And then they just say some Latin and it's over. Like the ending is very, yeah, like it's, you know, like it kind of just uses the Exorcist thing. Like we'll say some stuff, we'll throw some holy water, it floats around the room, and then it goes away.
Does the head turn 360 degrees? Does that happen at any point?
Not close, sort of a kind of some similar stuff. It does do a few of the thing, like the person goes upside down on the ceiling. There is some like head. I was like, it just, yeah, everything. It does technically barf, but after the demon's gone. So, you know, but this stuff is there.
So it's literally just an Exorcist knockoff.
It's kind of an Exorcist knockoff, and it's kind of an Amityville Horror knockoff. Like it's just the same. You know, those were totally influenced by some of that stuff historically, and then this is influenced by those movies and the same ish events. Yeah, so it felt very derivative. There wasn't anything particularly memorable about it. I think it was just horror movies have been so shitty for so long, and that this kind of fit into the slasher mold a little bit more and just hit at the right time. I guess that people thought it was cool. That it has decent ratings, which confuses me, and all the subsequent ones have terrible ratings.
Yeah.
And as far as I can tell, they're all the same shit. So I don't know why at the time people thought this one was all right.
It's because this one has significantly less jump scares, Ryan. Speaking from
it has a lot
and
of jump scares.
There are more jump scares in the other ones.
In the later ones,
fucking trivial. They like desensitize you so hard to jump scares. It's so stupid. You can tell when it's telegraphing.
All right. I thought it was just constantly that. There are like side characters I don't care about. The family's not really established other than they moved here and they love each other. That's it.
That's all you need. All you need is like love.
5 kids, and I can't fucking keep track of who they are.
Man.
You know, it's one of those where I'm like, if I was writing the script and like we were talking earlier, previous on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre about like based on reality. I'm like, I, Tanya's not real, right? When you make a movie like that, sometimes you're like, well, I need this kind of character, but I don't want to have too many people, so I'm just gonna kind of like edit it down to
I'll
make
combine
one
this
person kind of
character
fit the
into multiple.
roles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, you're moving in, you have some kids, right? Do you need 5 of them? Are we married to 5 children? Can we let a couple go in this script?
Put a few of these up for adoption.
Yeah, just because the real family had 5 kids doesn't mean we need to have 5 kids in here, right? So yeah, it was just that.
Just
where
have
like,
2 kids and put all of the characteristics into the 2 kids.
People are going to see that the story's bullshit in Wikipedia anyway. Like, why
you're
the
right,
fuck you even
real
trying?
quickly, yeah. They bring in a couple other people to help them with their demonology. It has no point. 2 of them flirt. That goes nowhere. It has no point. Like, there was so much where I was like, this is just like dragging along. And it does a lot of like, you're talking about B horror. It does a lot of like jump scare and then people talking and talking and talking about demons and what happened in this house and explaining shit and showing videos of other shit. And yeah, and then back to a jump scare and then talking and talking. And yeah, so I'm out. I'm not going to watch any of the other ones, honestly, either, unless for some reason it comes up.
Probably a good call. Like, it's not, anywhere near a classic horror franchise. Like,
when I hear one of them like jumps the
shark?
I don't know, horror shark, whatever it is,
the big shark,
like Annabelle's in space, or it gets like meta on itself or something, then I'm interested. But for
does that mean you're gonna watch
like,
Amityville in space, Ryan? Because I texted you about it.
I was aware of Amityville in space. Yeah. The screenshots you sent me definitely piqued my interest.
Well, don't. It's not worth it.
But yeah, we've watched Hellraiser in space. We've watched Freddy with Jason X. I guess Freddy hasn't been to space. Jason X.
So I like Vera Farmiga. I haven't seen her in a lot of things, but she is so good in The Departed, and she hasn't really gotten very many other like good roles to play, but she's so good in that movie. And whenever she's in something, I think, oh, maybe I should check that out. And then I read the script and I'm like, that sounds bad. Is she good in the movie?
I think she is. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I would say like she's kind of the only-ish thing.
Well, because
that works.
Like, was it Elaine Warren is supposed to be, what is it? A psychic, a medium.
Yeah, she's like,
so she's supposed to kind of like be able to tap into the energy of a house.
She can see the stuff or something.
Yeah, and so for like an actor, that's like fucking gold, because you want to be able to touch you touch a piece of wallpaper and you have like all these emotions. And I feel like she does a great job of bringing them to the surface. Like when she's seeing something or living something, it's really well done.
Yeah.
In the scope of the
movie. She sees a vision and she like freaks out about it or whatever. I thought was good. Lily Taylor that plays the mother that moves in, I thought she was pretty good. I like Ron Livingston, but it's just sort of like
I love
a
Ron
role
Livingston.
that this is just not a role for him. He just is like supposed to be playing white bread dad.
Now,
and he
Ron
does,
Livingston
but like, what's
in
the
like
point?
The original Amityville Horror might be interesting.
That could be something.
I
yeah.
would love to see Ron Livingston go fucking crazy and
right. Yeah.
lose his mind. But here
he just gets to be like confused.
Yeah.
Most of the time as to what's going on.
He walks around with the Warrens almost like they're plumbers. He's like, so what do we got here?
Yeah, what's in there?
Like, what's in this basement? I don't understand.
He's like the insurance adjuster.
Yeah. He's just trying to figure out. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so you're not recommending The Conjuring.
No, I don't even think there's really not anything.
Yeah. I wasn't one more comment. I remember when it came out, and I never saw it, but I remember when it came out, there was this like freak out about the movie among the movie watching populace. And there were all these people saying like, this is the scariest movie that's ever been made. And it's like fucking insane and all this stuff. And it's just such this visceral experience. Clearly that's not either of your experiences. What do you think made people have that reaction? Was it just like idiot people who had never seen a good scary movie before, or like, you know, why did it have that effect on the cultural zeitgeist?
Yeah, I'm gonna say, so I'm jumbling around my thoughts here, but I do think there's something to be said about watching a horror movie like with a crowd, and kind of like what that experience was. And I remember when I was younger going to like some of the Scream movies, which are just straight comedy.
Yeah, those
they're
aren't
not
even
really supposed to be scary, but people like actually like screaming or jumping during it. And I was just kind of like, yeah, I mean, you kind of give in to the experience, but I'm like, honestly, like, are we really like, but then you watch something like The Shining or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and you actually get disturbed, like you get unsettled, or Silence of the Lambs, like they're unsettling. They're not slashers or horror exactly, right? They're thriller horror type of situation. They're not these like jump scare things or whatever.
Yeah.
Even though there may be
Midsummer, some of the more modern
Midsummer's
stuff that
fucking
does that kind of
fucks
thing.
with me. Yeah. But the part like Hereditary, we did talk about that. I was like, the part that people talk about is when she's like all possessed or whatever and like banging her head and climbing on the ceiling.
Neck with the wire.
Yeah, and that's the stupidest part of that movie.
Yes.
Right?
Agreed.
But I'm like,
I think what makes those scenes work really well is the naked people that you can barely see in the background.
Yeah, that's
that
creepy.
just like freak you out. Well, Toni Collette's going apeshit and she's doing her thing and she's doing a great job, but like there's a dick over there. And it's like you could barely see it.
No,
like, is that a dick? Or was my mind imagining it?
Yeah, somebody could be stabbing themselves right in front of me, but if there's a sausage in the dark, I fucking just freak the shit out.
There's a saggy old guy over in the corner, and I don't like it.
No, It Follows, right? That's like the whole thing, and It Follows, and it's fucking creepy.
Yeah,
that movie's great.
Yeah.
So I think that this movie has a bunch of those jump scares. It has that like several times the like, did I see that? Did I not see that? Creepy person in like old timey clothing walking by a door, kind of shit that I think people, you do viscerally are kind of like, oh, that's weird, but it's not really that unsettling as much, when it's like in a film, like I'm like, I just sort of know that it's in the bound of film and I don't get a psychological hit from it that I think some people do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just the more like if you're younger and this is a early-ish horror movie that you go watch, like yeah, you'll be kind of freaked out. But I'm like, honestly, like I sat here and watched The Conjuring, and I'm sure if my kids walked around the corner, they'd be scared and kind of freaked out. But when I was sitting there watching the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I was making sure they weren't walking around the corner into my office because they'd be fucking scarred for life.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's I feel like that's the difference too, is it's an asterisk. When they say it's like the scariest film, they mean it's the jump scariest for me. That's how I interpret
not the most disturbing or unsettling that makes like sticks with you that you think about for days afterwards.
Yeah, because there's other shit that I've seen that's like way more disturbing, like Annihilation, like sticks with me.
Oh man,
that's just fucking stuck in my brain forever. And like, these other movies that are just way more mentally scarring. The Conjuring is like, it's a fun ride. And I mean, that's like saying it's the scariest movie is like saying it's the scariest ride. It's like, oh, it takes you like oh no, the spooky thing. And
it made your stomach jump into your throat.
Yeah. And then you're done. And you don't have to think about it ever again because fine. Also, like, I know that this probably topic has been just tread again and again, but why aren't there ghosts from like right now that we do movies about? Okay. Like, why isn't The Conjuring about some Wall Street dude who bet it all on stocks and killed himself? And then you hear him trading on the 12th floor. Like, whatever the fuck. Come on. Like,
all the ghosts are like from the 1800 to 1920s.
Yeah.
Like,
typically
right
when everything
was
was thought of as really shitty for America is when the ghosts all exist, apparently. And now they're all better. Like, there's no ghosts anywhere possible. Fuck it. Yeah.
I have a theory. I have a theory on that.
Uh-oh.
My theory is that you wouldn't find that stock trader guy scary or some dude in an 80s visor with a fanny pack scary.
You're right.
But because they know that they have this established archetype that works, when those ghosts like pass on, the newer ghosts just like take up the mantle. So like, it's like, this house haunting, has been going on for like 30 years and fucking with people, but I'm tired of it. Do you want to, like, you can do this now, and I'm just going to pass on.
Oh my God, there's a middle section between the afterlife where you just take on menial jobs to scare the shit out of people. Like,
I actually have
I know I was a stock trader
idea that somebody
but
can
when
steal.
I died, I build wagon wheels out at the old ranch.
Fuck with people. I had a sitcom idea that was where like all these paranormal investigators actually like figure it out and were able to like make ghosts tangible, but they get like stuck here. And they just become free labor because they're not technically citizens.
Oh,
and they're
shit.
just like
slippery slope to slavery.
The demonologists and stuff can like force them to go to a place and do things, and they're just stuck with that. And we just follow some like ghosts who are just in these menial jobs.
Season 2 has to be about them forming a union.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like
they're trying to unionize.
Oh my God.
We all support the Ghost Union. We're all big supporters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Cool. All right. So you are not recommending The Conjuring.
Yeah, no, not recommending, or any of these subsequent ones. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I am going to close us out by talking about a scary movie, but I wouldn't call it a horror movie, but kind of a movie that shows, kind of a scary situation that we could be in at some point, or perhaps are approaching. I'm talking about the movie from 1984 called 1984, based on the George Orwell novel from 1949.
If you want a vision of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. It's not so much staying alive. Staying human is important. There are thought criminals who maintain that the resistance is not real. Believe me, Winston, it is very real. What are your true feelings towards Big Brother?
I hate him.
You must love him. It's not enough to obey him.
They can't get inside you. They can't get to your heart.
No one escapes, Winston. There are no martyrs here.
You will do what is required of you.
How can I do it?
I actually bought this movie, I bought the Criterion Blu-ray and watched it a couple of years ago, not having read the book. And I was like, oh, that was interesting, but I don't really get it. And then I finally read the book about 6 months ago and really loved the book. And I was like, I should go back and watch that movie and see, like, maybe I just wasn't picking up on some things. And I went back and watched it this week and really enjoyed it, but at the same time, completely understood why I didn't really fully get it the first time that I saw it, because like reading the book is clearly a prerequisite for watching the movie. It leaves a lot of things unsaid, and it really like tonally captures the book really well, but it leaves out a lot of details that are very important for like understanding why things are happening, kind of, establishing what's going on in the society and, how we have reached this totalitarian state, where we are here in, the, what is supposed to be kind of Great Britain and the US are, formed in this alliance called Oceania. And there are three main global powers: Oceania, Eurasia, and East Asia. George Orwell wrote this book post-World War II and was kind of seeing the post-war military-industrial complex in Britain building up and a lot of the, kind of censorship that was going on at the time, and wrote this on his deathbed, like very concerned about where his society was heading. And, it's a really fascinating book. I highly recommend people read it. And the reason I finally read the book was I had been hearing a lot of people comparing our current society to 1984. So I was like, well, it'd be interesting to read this book. I've heard great things about it. For some reason, was not required reading in high school. But I read it about 6 months ago and really liked it. The movie is really good, but again, it's like tonally it's perfect, but you kind of have to like read the book to understand what's going on. The movie doesn't really explain like the Ministry of Truth and all the rules around the society around, you know, what you're allowed to say, what you're not allowed to say. But I think it's an incredibly like prescient book, and the movie does a good job of conveying those tones. John Hurt plays Winston, the lead character, and does a really great job in that role. You know, if you haven't read the book or seen the movie, Winston is kind of the main character that you're following in the book, who is a member of the, you know, the ruling party in Britain, but is, you know, kind of doesn't really buy what they're feeding him, and his kind of skeptical of what they're saying and looking for a way out and a way to kind of enjoy other things in his life outside of what the government says is kind of what he is supposed to do. You know, I think like a lot of people are comparing our modern society to 1984 from a lot of different political perspectives. You know, you have people on the left and the right that are identifying this book as like, hey, this is, you know, really true right now. And I think some of those critiques are correct and some of them are incorrect. But I think, you know, you see a lot of stuff in society today where, you know, like if you're outside of the establishment viewpoint on either the left or the right, you get censored on social media and things like that I think are kind of true to what the movie and the book are, you know, kind of trying to say. So I think it's very useful for people to like read that book, and the movie is a good kind of understanding of how it feels to be in that sort of environment. The cinematography is beautiful. It's shot by Roger Deakins. It looks great.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. It's a very dreary England, you know, kind of setting. It's very gray and cloudy and depressing. But there are scenes that are really beautiful. You know, if you've read the book, there are scenes kind of out in the countryside and in nature that are really well done on film that look really great. Richard Burton in his final role plays O'Brien,
the spy who came in from the cold.
Exactly. Huh? Yep. Richard Burton himself. He does a great job as O'Brien. I wish the movie got a little more into his character, but I think he does a good job with the script that he's given on kind of portraying that character. You know, if you are not familiar with the story, O'Brien is an inner party member he's like closer to the powers that be and the messaging that they're pushing down on the populace. And Winston thinks that O'Brien might actually be skeptical of what the party is saying and thinks he may be an ally. And so, you know, there's some interactions between them that are really interesting. If you are sensitive to torture sequences, you may not want to watch this movie. The final act of the film is a bit brutal in kind of how they portray the, you know, kind of torturing of the country's own citizens. But I think it's really fascinating and a really interesting portrayal of, you know, kind of how the military industrial complex has turned into what it is today. You know, it's like you look at how we treat citizens of other countries with Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib and things like that. And, you know, think about how, like, you know, one or two steps further, we could easily do that to American citizens and kind of not think twice about it. And obviously, you know, the book was written in Britain. They don't have the same civil rights and, you know, that Americans do, and the same protections there. So I think it's probably a little bit more pressing over there. But yeah, I really liked 1984. I wouldn't recommend watching it if you haven't read the book, because again, I think it's kind of hard to follow what's going on. Like, you need those societal details that are written explicitly in the book. And I almost wonder if it would have benefited a little bit from some voiceover or a little bit more runtime. It's less than 2 hours. And I think, you know, if this were like a 3-hour epic and they had put in the necessary legwork to like really make you understand how the society is functioning and what's going on, I think it could have been like a really great kind of classic film, but it doesn't quite get there. But I think it's really well executed and definitely worth watching if you've read the book.
Yeah, like that's really interesting because I've never read the book. I have read Animal Farm and I've read
I also read Animal Farm recently. I bought like a book that had both Animal Farm and 1984 in it, and I read them back to back.
They're making an Animal Farm adaptation pretty soon, I think, too.
They have an animated one already.
Doing that shit, but they're doing it again.
There's an animated one back in the day.
Yeah, I've read that, and I've read, unfortunately, a good number of Ayn Rand.
Wait, why?
Because that was part of the school curriculum.
Oh, dear Lord.
Which is Texas schools, everybody. They make you read Ayn Rand and learn about objectivism, which is bullshit.
I went to a private Christian school and we didn't have to read Ayn Rand. That's shocking.
Well, that's because Ayn Rand teaches you to think for yourself in a private Christian school. They want you to do that.
But they want you to learn, they want you to think like Ayn Rand.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. So they have to be very coy about it, obviously. But yes, I'm very curious to watch this before reading the book and then watch it after and see kind of how it goes, because I feel like there's an element of mystery. Like, I'm sure that there's confusion if you watch it and you don't have full context for what the society is. But I think that the implication of learning from a movie and then reading the book and then maybe watching it again might be like like twofold. Because you read the book and you're like, that's fucking scary. But you watch the movie and you're like, the fuck was that about? And then you read the book and you're like, holy fuck. And then you go back and watch the movie. It's like layered over in a way that makes you really understand it. Because I have a lot of people.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience doing it in that order.
Yeah, I have a lot of people in my circle who are doing the same thing, where they're throwing. It's the same thing as like for a while, a lot of people were calling a lot of people Nazis. And you know, they weren't anti-Semitic; they were just being fascist. That's different. But like
they're like little Mussolinis. They're not Nazis.
Yeah,
they're
honestly,
like Italian fascists.
Yeah. And so like that was a whole thing that happened. But I remember somebody on Facebook telling me like, we just wait and watch. It'll be like 1984 all over again, in a way that was supposed to make me go like, ooh. When I'm already a dude who works in tech, who works with fucking data gathering, and like there's already been Cambridge Analytica and all this other shit, that I'm like, you think that the worst is ahead of us? You fucking motherfucker. Did you not see the Patriot Act? Did you not see what corporations are doing? Mm-hmm. Are you not aware that everything you're doing is being influenced by advertising and other things that just get more of the dopamine out of you? Like, we're already fucking there, man. It's already terrifying, but we're not doing Logan's Run yet, where we renew at age 30. Thankfully, everybody on this podcast is a little over that hill.
Yeah, so,
trouble. But yeah, anyways, Ryan, what's up?
I was gonna say, in 1984 now, I feel like would need to be a mini series, a limited series.
Yeah, it would benefit from that extra time. Have you read the book, Ryan?
Yeah, I have read the book. I was going to also mention sort of the interesting cycle of 1984. I always think of 1984 and Brave New World, which I know was in the 30s, but that's the same.
I haven't read Brave New World yet. That's on my list of things to read very soon, but I've heard it's an interesting kind of different approach to the horrifying dystopia ahead of us.
Yeah, there's also an like okay-ish adaptation of Brave New World as well. But the sort of propaganda, nationalism, war machine of that time created those novels, which then had adaptations in the 80s, the Thatcher, Reagan time kind of brought back this. And then there are books like The Handmaid's Tale in the 80s that now is getting made and adapted now. So we're kind of like coming back on these again, as we kind of have these nationalist movements. We kind of go back to some of these things in the past and re-examine them again. I've read it a few times. I have not seen that adaptation.
Apparently there were a bunch of other adaptations like soon after the book was written, like in the 50s and stuff, that were all
like radio plays
pretty bad.
Too.
No, like movie adaptations. That were supposedly not very good. And then Michael Radford made this version in 1984, and everyone was like, "Oh, good, we finally have a good version of this." And then it kind of like ended, and nobody really like tried to adapt again. Although, like, you could argue that Brazil is just a 1984 adaptation, but Terry Gilliam says he's never read 1984, and I don't believe that motherfucker for a second. And I love Brazil. I think it's much better than 1984, but I think 1984 is very good, and it's a more true adaptation of the novel. It's just not establishing enough for like somebody to come in blind to it.
And I also wonder how much like movie making politics plays into something like that too. Of like, yeah, you have your runtime, you have your act, you got to get your certain
Yeah.
actors, you have your runtime, you have to do certain things. We want you to add something because that's what people want to watch. And the '80s was like prime for movies. It's like you have to have these things in it,
Right, for sure.
or we're not going to fund your movie.
Are there still stakes? Like, so kind of given the fact that you're saying that you have to read the book before you actually see it to have full context, are there still narrative stakes that you can latch onto when you watch it?
Yeah, I mean, I liked the movie when I first watched it, but I was kind of confused. I was like, okay, like I kind of get what they're doing, but like they would make reference to things that I didn't fully understand. And then like a year or two later, I read the book and I was like, oh, that was so good. Like I should go back and watch the movie and see like maybe what I missed the first time. Because the first time I was like, it's good, but like it just feels like a little empty, like more vibe than substance. And then I watched it again. I was like, oh yeah, it captures the vibe perfectly, but it just needed some more background. But you can still enjoy it if you haven't read the book. But I think it is very much enhanced if you have read the book and kind of understand the broader implications of the society, so you understand more of like the weight of what the characters are doing. It's like anything that the ruling party is disagreeing with is like a capital offense, right? And so like you have like, it's like sex is forbidden and like there's a bunch of stuff like you can't do, and you have to just kind of toe the party line and say the things. And it's not really made clear in the movie that is like the ramifications of these things. But like it's fucking fat. Like the book is just so good and so fascinating, and they have a lot of those things in the movie in a very visceral way that work really well. Like there's a thing in the book called the 2 minutes hate, that the opening scene of the film is that, and it's just like there's every day when you go to work, you have to stop in the middle of the day and they play like a video and you have to like yell hatred at the screen. And it's like they talk about, it's like fake propaganda about the uprising and the evil people that are trying to take down the government from the inside. And you just like yell horrible things at the screen and get everybody up in this vitriol. And like, you look at today's politics and it's all 100% hate based, right? It's like, it's not, nobody, every single vote is a protest vote, right? There's nobody that is affirmatively being like, I fucking love Joe Biden, I'm voting for him. Like, not one fucking person. Jill Biden doesn't like Joe Biden. Like, there's nobody out there who's being like, yeah, I really want, Hunter Biden likes Joe Biden. But like, maybe he's the only one who's real excited about making that vote. But
that's the cocaine.
Yeah, exactly. and the guarding him from prison time.
Oh yeah.
But like there's all these things that that Orwell envisioned in this book that are very true today, where it's like hate is the extreme motivating factor for everything that we do and for political alliances and all these things. Like the concept of memory holing, like that was invented in 1984. This idea that like the governmental regime will only have the current narrative be the only narrative that has ever been. And so like, there's this whole thing where like, oh, we've been at war with this country. Yeah. Oh, but no, like, we're at war. Oceania is at war with Eurasia. No, actually, Oceania is at war with East Asia, and we've always been at war with East Asia. So we have to go back to all the previous news articles and like correct them and change things. And like, you look at like, I'm gonna make some people mad with this, but like, like
fucking go for it.
Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing. I fucking hate Trump, but I also hate like the democratic centrist regime that has like pushed back against him, where it's like anything that Trump says is bad, the Democratic Party is now like, that has always been bad. And so like you turn this into like all of a sudden like in the early 2000s, like, Democrats were like against forever wars and we hated George Bush and all these things. And then Trump is like, hey, maybe we should pull out of Afghanistan, or maybe we should like not like have this like, maybe I should like have diplomacy with Kim Jong-un. And then all of a sudden, like now the Democratic establishment is the most like rabid pro-war thing that has ever been. And it's like, we have to keep fighting Russia and funding Ukraine and all these things. And it's like, oh no, and it's like they keep trying to erase the past, being like, no, we didn't used to be in favor of peace. We've always been in favor of war. And it's like, we've always been at war with East Asia. It's always been this way. And like there's an effort for whoever is in power to erase the past, to make it seem like whatever they say now is the thing that we should always do. Like, again, I'm going to make more people mad. Like, like during COVID, it was like, oh, masks don't work. Oh, masks do work. Oh, vaccines work. Oh, they don't work. Oh, they do. And it's like, we're going through all these things, and like, whatever is the new thing is the thing that like we have to believe was always the case. Right. And we can't like look with an open mind of, oh, hey, we're learning, we're gaining new scientific knowledge. Like, we are changing our perspective as we're going. It's like, whatever the current like establishment view is the thing that everyone has to adopt, and we have to like fucking shame all the people who disagree with that and all these things. And like, I'm not like, I fucking vaccinated. My dad died from COVID because he's not vaccinated. Like, I hate all of the anti-vax propaganda and all that bullshit. I'm just saying that like, it's whatever the current viewpoint of the establishment is like, all of a sudden, this is what everyone should believe. If you don't believe that, you're an evil piece of shit. And like, we can't have that. And we need to shame you publicly and cancel you and get you removed from Twitter and all this stuff. And it's like, it's become, post-Trump, our modern society has become very anti-free thought and free speech. And like, look, a lot of free thought and free speech is stupid. And that's kind of the point, right?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people have dumb shit to say and they have horrible ideas, but like, that's kind of the bedrock of American society is American stupidity. And we kind of have to have that in order to have free thought and conversation that works. And I think 1984 is just a fascinating exploration of those ideas. And I'm kind of shocked at how true those things have become. And again, like, I know, like John, you made a comment before, like, we started recording, like, oh yeah, my like conservative, like shithead friend, like talks about that all the time. And it's like, yes, a lot of people are citing 1984 as like, yo, yeah, this is, that's how society is now. I think a lot of people are right when they say that. A lot of people are maybe coming at it from a wrong angle. Yeah, but yeah. I think it is a fascinating piece of literature. And I think the film is really interesting. So I highly recommend both. For people to check out as a horrifying dystopia. The scariest thing you could possibly read or watch this October is 1984.
Yeah, and I just want to say that I thank you for qualifying conservative shithead friend, because I don't consider anybody who just says I'm conservative to be a shithead. I'll have you know out there that I'm in favor of the let's go to the library, let's both get books, sit down, read shit and see what we learn as human beings and then talk about it. And if you're still conservative after, you're still conservative after. Absolutely. Sure. But when you're like, calling everybody a Nazi, or you're calling everybody, fucking, oh, it's 1984 all over again. Here I am being oppressed. Like, that's where I kind of draw the line of like, all right, dude, let's take stock in where you're fucking standing. Because honestly, I remember somebody saying net neutrality is the equivalent of the fucking book burnings in Germany. And are you fucking kidding me?
I believe it's the opposite of that.
The dumbest fucking
like
shit.
By definition, I think it's the opposite of that.
Exactly. And the moment that I called that person on it, they were like, okay, wait, let me just check my sources, because Ted Cruz is my source. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, that's where you're wrong. But like, yeah, there's no reason why you can't have a discussion over beers, why you can't sit at the table and talk. And I think that like the more that the political machine gets ramped up, and the more that like different news outlets are like, this person's fucking wrong, aren't they? Like, there's a lot of like blowing the horn to be like, hey, let's fucking make fun of this person because they believe this. And really the perspective should be, why don't we ask that person why they fucking think that? And then let's have a conversation, not let's just belittle this person for believing this, because y'all come from different backgrounds. Everybody's a different understanding of where they're at. Everybody has a different socioeconomic profile that they're going under, and they're making these assumptions based on all of that. The moment that you all start talking about it, the moment you realize, fuck, we're talking about the same thing, maybe. And exactly. Shit, that's that's not what I want at all. Yeah, like that's exactly where I kind of come from with the 1984 stuff. Is most of the people I've talked to think about it surface level, and they don't think about it after. And it's very interesting that you've like brought this whole thing up, because we just talked about it in the Texas Chainsaw episode. you kind of brought up that like I'm vegan and you're asking my perspective on something, and it was, I would say, a very respectful and appropriate way to bring up like, hey, this is your perspective. What do you think about it? Just to curiously, get my take.
Mm-hmm.
And while what I stated was what I believe, it's not something that I was like, Dixon, you have to believe that this is true. And I didn't call you a fucking idiot at the end of the episode. So like we can still have, conversations amicably, but I still have friends out there who post that like the Democrats are at it again. And I'm like, why do you have to just other anybody? Why do you have to say this shit? Like, why can't you just say what you're afraid of, not what you've been told to be afraid of, and then have a conversation with somebody you trust and love who might believe those things? Like, it's frustrating.
Well, and like how is it that your lifestyle is suddenly an assault on my lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the reaction. Yeah. And there is this never back down, never concede, never cooperate mentality on both sides now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what it's become. I was actually having a conversation with someone earlier this week who is a theologist who has a degree, multiple degrees in it, that was saying when she goes back to her family, they argue with her about stuff that she's like, that's not in the Bible. Like, this is what's in the Bible. And they're like, well, Tucker Carlson said it. So like, right. It's like, but I have the degree. Like I know the original translations. How can
and then they get anti-intellectual
understand this?
Like, you higher education fucking.
Yeah. Well, that's just they've indoctrinated you at the Christian university that you attended.
Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, I will say for 1984, I've come around to it. Initially, I thought it was really cool. Not 1984, the concept, but I thought that Apple was really cool as a company.
Oh no, definitely not.
I've come around to the fact that Apple is just as evil as any other company can be. And the fact that Steve Jobs used 1984 to advertise the Macintosh in 1984 is the epitome of capitalism. Just the funniest shit to me now. It's like sad funny. I'm just like, that's fucking awful. If you think about that, it's fucking awful.
Yeah.
Think for yourself and now use our products that we purposely designed to be backwards from
Don't
everything
forget to
else.
think different as we put it over a poster of Albert Einstein.
Yeah, as we purposely use bad grammar.
Why didn't they put think different over Oppenheimer? Oh God.
Yeah. I think there are, there are just so many interesting ideas in the film and the book. Like the book is more prose and the movie is more poetry, so it's like the book has all the explanations of what's going on and the movie is more like capturing the feeling and the essence of kind of what's happening. And I think that's kind of a good comparison between the two. Whether you watch the movie before or after, I do think it's important to read the book. Like you won't understand the movie fully without it, but there's so many fascinating ideas that are just so in our modern culture now. Like talking about cancel culture and things like that, and removing people from society. Like in 1984, they literally removed people from society, and it's like in. Now it's like, oh, we remove Alex Jones from YouTube and no one sheds a tear because Alex Jones fucking sucks and he spreads a bunch of evil lies and shit. But it's also like we have free speech in America and probably YouTube needs to rethink their algorithm and how they push it to people. And maybe we should have some regulations around that stuff. But that doesn't mean that crazy people should be removed from the internet and their opinions shouldn't be heard, right? Yeah. There are always people that society has deemed as crazy that end up being correct in some form or other. And at the end of the day, anybody who is pro-Palestine ends up getting removed from the internet and getting that's kind of the one bipartisan group that everybody hates that just pushes out. And there's so many things in 1904 I think are super relevant. There's there's commentary about the military industrial complex. Basically we create war in order to keep people poor because we've mechanized society to the point where there's no reason that anybody should want for anything. So we just put all the money into missiles and send them overseas. And it's holy fuck. There's just so much wisdom in the book and so much foresight that is just shocking that this guy, wrote this in 1948, 1949. That I think is just really fascinating and worth reading for anybody, regardless of, how you interpret it politically and what you think the implications are on our modern society. I think it's pretty fascinating shit.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where like, I think about this often as like great art is something that is interpreted by everyone.
Yeah.
Like it can be resonant with like any perspective. And that's a blessing and a curse. Cause the moment that you're like, oh, I totally resonate with that. And somebody asks you why, who you are comes out of the answer.
Yeah.
And it's like where you were raised, what you believe, how all of those things go. And I think that the real thing that art is trying to invoke, and this is like, it's Scorsese to Orwell to like anybody else, is the moment that you both start talking about that, you should have some realization that you have common ground to bond over with the art. And then at the same time, realize that there are things that you don't agree with on either side. And why don't I agree with those? And that's what the art's supposed to kind of like create, is the clash. And it's not supposed to be, like you're a dumb shit, like kind of clash, like a name calling invocation. It's supposed to be why the fuck don't we agree on this? Like, what exactly is it about it that's different for us? And that's where,
and a lot of times it's people identifying the same problem and just not necessarily coming to the same conclusion, but there's like something to identify with there,
Absolutely. Yeah. It's two sides of the same coin, which is, that's just the saying as it goes. But yeah, I gotta check out 1984. I haven't seen the movie. I haven't read the book. I read it. If you want
to borrow the Blu-ray, you're welcome to, or the book. I have both, so you're welcome to borrow them.
Orwell's an easy read, so I know I can get through that pretty well. But yeah.
But yeah, and it's like like Scorsese, it's like everybody give bros misinterpret his movies as to be like, yay, violence is cool, or like we should just get rich and make a bunch of money and
fucking love Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, exactly. Stockbrokers buying out full theaters to watch Wolf of Wall Street kind of shit. And like I saw a pre-screening of Red Rocket at Austin Film Society, and Sean Baker was there for Q&A, and Linklater was asking him questions about the movie, and he was like, he asked him about the Florida Project, and Baker was like, well, Ben Shapiro said the Florida Project was his favorite movie of the year. And he was like, I took a lot of pride in that because it means that anybody from any political perspective can at least identify with the problems that I am trying to talk about in my films. And I thought that was really interesting that he was proud of that rather than ashamed by it. It's like, no, like that's great that Ben Shapiro thinks that the Florida Project is good, because like I'm trying to talk about poverty and all these things that we need to address as a society, and I have somebody who likes it and is promoting it, and maybe we can make some change, even if it's from a different perspective than than maybe Sean Baker is, So yeah, I definitely like agree that a piece of art that can bring people in from both sides is definitely it probably means that piece of art is worthwhile and has something interesting to say.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we've got a recommend for Schlock, a refute.
Yes. You do have a recommend for Schlock.
Recommend for Schlock as a concept and for the specific movie of Schlock, both from John Garcia.
Yes, you do.
We've got a refute from Ryan for The Conjuring and a recommend from me for 1984. That is the Michael Radford version that came out in 1984, starring John Hurt and Richard Burton, with the caveat that you should probably read the book. But yeah, so we got a 2-in-1 record this week. Pretty solid overall. One like classic horror movie and two other movies that sound scary. But you may not classify in the horror genre. Cool. Well, thank you guys for joining us this week with me, as always.
John Garcia. Check in with me next episode to see how my mental health is doing. Schlocktober rolls on.
Spoiler alert, it's not going to be going very well, folks.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah. And also,
Ryan King, we've always been your favorite podcast.
Are you trying to implant that? Is that what the history
that's
has
the
been?
truth. We've always
That's
been
the
that.
history.
Everything else is fake news.
We've always been at war with your favorite podcast.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, you're Michael Dixon, obviously. So.
Oh, God damn it. I never
Get out
fucking...
yourself.
And cut. Hey there, movie buffs, TV toughs, and all listeners in between. John here from the Afterthoughts podcast. I just wanted to drop in at the end of this episode and say thanks for listening. If you've got afterthoughts of your own to share, hit us up. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Afterpod, or jump into a conversation on our Discord server. You can find info for this and more at theafterpod.transistor.fm. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.